Welcome you to Porch Talk. This is your host, Alan, and this is a Zoom call. We're headed out to Nashville to talk to Lee Gallagher. Lee, how you doing?
I'm all right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So, just to get things started, tell me a little bit about where you're from.
I grew up in Cincinnati, and then I moved out to San Francisco about 15 years ago. And then I just came out here about a year ago, kind of to be closer to, I got a bunch of family in Tennessee, and closer to Cincinnati. You know,
Right on. Well, man, I guess we found each other through Erica Winterstrom, and she's
yeah.
from the Cincinnati area. How'd y'all meet?
She was kind of just blowing everybody's mind in Cincinnati. She started doing open mics and just really just kicked everybody's ass. And then she got signed to Fat Possum, which is down there, right?
It is.
Oxford.
Yeah.
And just blew it up. We actually became more friends because she would tour through San Francisco. I didn't really know her in Cincinnati that well. So
Oh,
then we
really?
became tighter in San Francisco. And now she comes to Nashville all the time. And yeah.
Yeah, I wrote her last night. I was inviting her to come and play Porch Fest in April. It's a music festival I do here in Columbus. And I would, but I think I'm playing a festival in Mexico. I mean, she is just all over the place.
Oh, that's good. That's what they're doing that a lot now, right? Like the
Yeah.
cruises and the on the beach festivals and all that.
Yeah, it's all coming back.
That's
Well,
right.
man, tell me a little bit about Cincinnati, man. Like what was you into when you was growing up?
um, Rock and roll kind of just hit me like when I started to hear Led Zeppelin and bands like that. It's just kind of like they used to have on the radio. They used to get the lead. I don't know if they still do that nowadays, but get the lead out at 10 o'clock every night. So that's when you get in like my friend had a Jeep, and every night we go over there and roll up a joint and drive around and listen to Get the Lead Out. And then it's weird how like I moved to my parents moved me to like the suburbs of Cincinnati, and I they wanted me to be social, so I joined the swim team.
Hmm.
And I was on that, and there happened to be two dudes that had a band. Like the only band in the high school was these guys. And so I just went over and I said I could play the piano. We had a piano in my house, but I couldn't play the piano. I said I could, so I could just be in the room with these dudes. And then I kind of just alluded to their singer sucking. And so they're like, well, if you think you can do better. And so I did. And then they kicked him out and boom. Battle of the Bands. We won the Battle of the Bands out of 500 bands in Cincinnati. You know all that. It's funny. The guys from I don't know if you ever heard of what's that band? The National.
Yeah.
Um, the brothers were from Cincinnati. The
Oh,
Desner
okay.
brothers, and we were in the Battle of the Bands with those guys. We beat them too. They were in a band called Equinox. Really a Grateful Dead oriented band. And it's funny that dude's now he's riding with Taylor Swift and
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what would lead you out to San Francisco? Would that be in the pursuit of music?
Yeah, it's kind of just to get out and I just got married around that time. And so we moved out to San Francisco, and it was to me just like a mythical place. And because I love like that whole scene of the Grateful Dead and Quicksilver, all that stuff. So we went out there and just started playing. I was going out to the desert a lot too, driving down to Joshua Tree, and I didn't have a band. I didn't know anybody, so I started recording myself with a little 8 track. And I actually went down and met these people in Joshua Tree, and that was kind of like my first solo thing. Was these people down there? It was Victoria Williams, who I was a great fan of. She was married to Mark Olson at the time. He was in the Jayhawks. Love that band. So yeah, that was kind of the deal. I started doing that, and then I met a guy who's actually I was working in a restaurant on Fisherman's Wharf, and this guy was playing was a drummer and a piano player, and they were out there, playing for tips. And this guy had a like a little mini piano, like an acoustic piano. And I was like, well, this takes, that's a lot of work, all that thing around. But I went up and I just said like, hey, you know, if y'all want to play, here's my email. And then I hooked up with them. And then we started really getting a lot of traction in San Francisco. We played with got to play with Leon Russell. Um, a
Wow.
bunch of cool shit happened in San Francisco. Yeah, it was a good time to be there.
Yeah, man. Like I've heard a lot of stories about Joshua Tree, specifically about those trees. They say they move. How much time did you spend down there? Did you ever experience some spooky tree movement?
Oh well, yeah. It's well, they do have lots of there's what things called the jumping choyas too. They
Yeah.
say that, but yeah, we would go down there and stay in the 29 Palms Inn, which is in 29 Palms, which is by the air base. I think it's the largest military base in the United States is out there. And at the time, they were using it a lot because it looks like the Middle East out there. It looks like, so if you're training for like Afghanistan or whatever, it's like, but that also adds to crazy shit in the skies, weird stuff happening.
Hmm.
I've had friends like sitting out on their porch at 4 a.m, and all of a sudden they see like these trucks going down the road with people with rifles pointing it out, like weird
Oh.
shit. But yeah, the park is cool. I mean, have you ever been there?
No, I haven't, man. I've had some friends of mine. They tour the country in a hearse. They're called the Stiff Tones,
Oh.
and so uh, depending on what time of the year, they always make camp out in Joshua Tree, usually around the winter time. And they've told me several stories. Just like, man, you got to come out there and record with us and just meet everybody, man. It's awesome out there. And
So yeah, the what's this? The Rancho de la Luna is
mm,
really close. So we have a little cabin out there. That like segues into this is we would stay in this place. This dude from Ohio owned this place, and I would stay. This is like before Airbnb, and it was like $80. And when I was recording down there, we would stay there. And then so anyway, that's right by the Rancho de la Luna, owned by um, Dave Ketching and the guys from Queens of Stone Age. All that Iggy Pop's recorded there. Really cool place. But yeah, it's funny that your friends have a hearse because that's the whole Graham thing is they got a hearse and went out there. That guy's
mm.
around too, the Mangler. What's that guy's name? I can't remember his name. They call him the Mangler. The guy who actually Graham's friend who took his body to back then that was a monument, not a national park. And so they took it into the park and burned his body.
Oh wow.
That's real.
Yeah, I'm not real sure like how they got moving with the hearse. I don't know if it was because of that story, but we met through an NPR Tiny Desk concert contest and linked up and like did a podcast just like this. And next thing they were out of the Chicago area. They were on the south side of Chicago. And next thing I know, they had come across this hearse and they was like, hey, we're coming down through Athens, and then we were going to swing over through Alabama. And I was just outside of Birmingham and Tuscaloosa at that time.
Mhm.
And they was like, man, if it's cool, we'd like to come by. And I was like, yeah, swing by. And this would be the first festival that I threw. I threw it at my house there. I invited several bands from the area to come out, and we just met in the middle of nowhere at my house, and we threw a music festival.
Oh, right on. That sounds like the stories of Mudcrutch, like Tom Petty's early band out in Florida.
Yeah, down in Gainesville.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, man. So
Um,
go ahead.
well, I just heard a story. I listened to this thing, this podcast. Do you know O'Teal?
I
Uh,
don't.
O'Teal Burbage. So he played with the Allman Brothers and he played with the Dead. Um, he has a podcast and he was talking to Derek Trucks and Susan Tedeschi. And his Derek Trucks' dad is Butch Trucks, the drummer's uh, brother.
Hmm.
And he would do these big kind of hippie commune parties out in outside of St. Augustine. And he said he didn't know it, but at the time, I think it was the Allman Brothers were opening for Tom Petty, and Tom Petty pulled Derek Trucks aside and is like, "Hey man, I've never met Greg." could you introduce me? And Derek Trucks is like, what? So he takes him back to meet Greg Allman because, down there, well, I'm sure the whole Georgia and all that, like they were like the shit, and everybody had to sound like the Allman Brothers.
hmm
And yeah, but I can see that down there.
Well, man, just like going back to your Battle of the Bands and then moving it out to San Francisco and recording like those early days of music, and you said that you were getting the lead out. Would that be your sound? Would you be like true rock and roll?
Uh, yeah, well, around that time, we were all into, yeah, it was kind of like a Southern rock. The Black Crows were big to us. Like we just were kind of like, wow, like kind of that whole, I guess it would be energy or attitude. Um, that really hit all those guys, like those guys I met in high school. They were like, he loved Dickie Betts. And so they would play like they would play Allman Brothers song. I kind of got annoyed with that. They love Jimi Hendrix, all that stuff too. And I always thought like Jimi Hendrix, I didn't really like singing his songs because his songs are kind of strange to sing. Um,
Yeah.
but then we started writing, and then I kind of like that's when I taught myself how to play guitar and kind of do my own thing. I always kind of like, I don't know, Neil Young, all that stuff. I like how Neil can kind of do acoustic and then do Crazy Horse and kind of float around. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like what I do, man. Like I host the open mic here in town, and like depending on what kind of night it is, it starts out like singer songwriter, just acoustic guitars, and then as the night progresses, I mean the electric guitars come out, or sometimes we'll have fiddles and banjos come out, and it kind of turns bluegrass. You don't really know what's going to happen. You don't know who's going to be on the stage playing together,
Yeah, I
and
love it.
it's a great thing. I mean, probably have experienced a lot of that since you've been in Nashville.
Oh, this is Music City. It's kind of crazy. Like you walk around and you're like, everybody's got a guitar. You can see in their house.
Hmm
Uh, that's what's cool. Definitely about being in Nashville is I'm getting the sun on me. Um, it's just yeah, everybody can play their asses off.
Yeah. I used to when I would go up there on the way out, I would always go to the pawn shops. And man, you don't know what kind of music equipment's coming in there because somebody just sold whatever they had left just to go back home because they're leaving with a broken dream.
That's true. Yeah, there is a lot of that's the flip side to Nashville. There's a lot of people that kind of sound the same. You know what I mean? Because they're trying to be in the machine. And there is that whole thing too.
Yeah.
Uh
Leads me man, so we're kind of celebrating your new release. You tell us a little bit about the new record.
so the one before this one, I had kind of split up with some of the guys in San Francisco, and me and the me and the keyboard player and the bass player went down to LA. And there's this guy, Jason Soda, who owns a studio called Palomino Sound. And he was in a band called Gospel Beach with some of the guys from Beachwood Sparks. I don't know if you remember that band. Hal and Rain. He also plays with Hal and Rain right now. A
Okay.
great, but anyway, he kind of out of the blue, he suggested like, why don't you come down here and record? And I was like, well, what about using some LA guys? He's like, let's do it. And so we went down there and recorded that last one there, and then it was set to come out, and then pandemic, and so we all kind of waited. Everybody did. Like, I'm not putting my shit out yet, and then like everybody's like, this is gonna be forever. So everybody just flooded with the records. So we put it out in 2020, and couldn't tour or anything. So then we decided to just go. Well, I decided to just go. I called him and like, just go back in the fall of 2020 and just kind of mess around and keep moving and keep recording. But that record was it was weird. We couldn't have a lot of people in. We were kind of sketched out about being in there ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we it was before vaccines and all that. But we started just to. I just brought songs in that weren't finished. Lyrics weren't done, and we just kind of went for it. And then so it's got a very like a live feel to it. Scarlett Rivera came by, which is like blew my mind. He had just met her, and she lives in LA. I didn't know that, and he said we should send Scarlett some tunes to see if you know. And then she liked it, and she said she would come by, and I was like, actually, I'm gonna
Whoa.
share that on Instagram soon. I have like I was kind of I didn't want to freak her out by holding a phone in her face when she was trying to do a track, but I did like record it when she first started playing, and it was kind of like because I had just seen that Rolling Thunder Scorsese thing, the documentary about Rolling Thunder review. It just came out kind of right before that, and then she was in the room. It was a trip.
Yeah, I bet it was, man.
Yeah,
Oh, and just to go back to like the moving around that you've done, when I think about Ohio, man, I think like, Midwestern, I'm thinking like Hawthorne Heights, especially in the early 2000s with all that's what kind of what Ohio sounded like. Did your early band kind of fall into that, I guess, kind of emo, like Taking Back Sunday sound ever?
fuck no, no, no. I think we've always been kind of. Well, I've always been kind of a like 1 foot in the '70s, like all the time.
Yeah.
uh, I think it's just yeah. I learned early on to really just follow what's in my I don't know what it would be my soul, my heart, whatever I think sounds good, you know. And
Yeah.
it wasn't emo music for some reason. I don't know why, but I loved. I used to like. I got to meet Catfish. So Bootsy Collins lives in Cincinnati, and at the time there was a band. There's lots of funk. That's what I love about Cincinnati. It's weird. It's almost geographical. Like since it's on a river, there's lots of different shit happening. And King Records was founded there. They James Brown, like they actually, I think they just King is going to be on. They're going to reopen it and make it a museum, kind of like Chess in Chicago.
Okay.
Actually, I had a good story about when you said that your friends are from the South Side of Chicago. I actually, when I was in Chicago, side note, when I was in Chicago, there we used to go up in Cincinnati. A lot of people would skip over Cincinnati, and so you go up to Chicago to see music. And we would drive there, and it was too expensive to stay, so we drive 5 hours up there, and then drive just as soon as the show's done, drive back. You know.
Yeah.
But I was there one time. I was like, you know what? I've never been to Chess. I'm gonna go. And like, I got on their website, and they're like, oh, yeah, come on, man. And so they're like $10 cash. I'm like, so I go there, Southside Chicago, Michigan Avenue. Nobody's in there. And they're like, I give them the $10, and they're like, just go on upstairs, and you're gonna watch a video. And they pull out like old school elementary VHS tape thing that's on wheels with a TV, and they push play, and they're like folding chairs, and I'm like in there by myself. And this room is where Howlin' Wolf recorded. All this stuff went down, and I'm there by
Hmm.
myself. And then this woman comes up, and she gave me a tour, and it's just me. It's usually, I guess, it would be a group if there was people there, but it was just me, and it was Willie Dixon's daughter,
Oh, cool.
and she took me around. The coolest thing was where the mixing board was at Chess. Behind it, there was these two pipes in the floor, and she's like, "You see these two pipes? This is the Chess sound." They would put the microphones on the cables and lower them through these pipes down to the second, and that's this reverb weird sound that all those old groovy records got.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
from that. And Willie Dixon's bass was there. I asked about because that was a major lawsuit with Zeppelin, as they got sued by the Willie Dixon estate.
Hmm.
I mean, kind of rightly so, at least lyrically, rightly so. But I was like, so what happened with that? And she's like, you think we would have an elevator because they sell stairs and stuff, like you have to get, she's like, we would have an elevator here and blah 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 if we would have won all that. But yeah, that was my Chess story. But anyway, back to Cincinnati. King, Bootsy. I got to meet Catfish Collins, Bootsy's brother, who played with James Brown. Like that was the whole thing. I think James Brown was in Georgia when he called. He fired his band like right before they went on stage and called Bootsy and Catfish, and those guys like, get out here, and this just went right on. I think the story is they walked past the band as they got fired and get right on.
Yeah, major replacements.
You know, but so that influence was there. Um, Dayton, Ohio. Well, there was at one point they were calling Cincinnati was going to be the next Seattle. Grunge music and all that stuff was like it was going to hop off. Um, Dayton, Ohio had bands like, and these are 90s, like the Breeders, Guided by Voices. That's where Erica's from Dayton.
Yeah.
She grew up listening to all that shit too. But she would come, I imagine a lot of people, Dayton's like an hour outside Cincinnati, but it's like, I think they all like the Cincinnati Bengals and the Reds. You know, they're kind of a satellite of Cincinnati. But yeah, that was the scene. But no email from me.
Yeah, yeah, cool. I mean, just what I was thinking about, like you said, you were coming down to LA to record, and like when I think about LA, like LA musicians do have a particular sound, especially like even from San Francisco to LA. There's a big difference to me. You can almost like immediately point it out, and
Mhm.
I can't really like define it, but I know it when I hear it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I would call it the canyony. A lot of the singer songwriters, the Eagle, yeah, I get it. And
Yeah,
that's funny because I'm just reading a book, a Leon Russell biography, and he was the king in LA at the time. Like he was part of the Wrecking Crew. He played on all those records, and at one point, Leon was, and it was weird because I played with him. I was too scared to meet him. I hung out with his bus driver. He became a friend of mine, Mikey. He kind of looks like Leon, a big biker dude, who's scary, but he's like a teddy bear. But
yeah.
Leon, when he first started to turn, like they had all those Oklahoma people there. JJ Cale was there living in Leon's house. Just a real hippie. We called it what, the hippie commune bona fide. Like that was the deal. But yeah, Rita Coolidge, all those bands that would, it was like Delaney and Bonnie, they turned into the band. You remember at a point in time when everybody was like Clapton wanted to be in the band, George Harrison wanted to be in the band and go to Woodstock and hang out with them just to get that vibe. People
Yeah.
started to do that with Delaney and Bonnie. Um, their first record like just blew. Like I think Clapton took the whole band. Like Clapton's first record, solo record, which I love, like Blues Power and all this. That's Leon Russell and all those dudes playing on
Oh
it.
yeah.
So that's like another LA vibe to me. Is all those it's all the displaced people. That's the thing that when you move to California, it's kind of weird to meet people who like usually if people are from LA or they never leave any they're kind of like why would I go anywhere you know
Yeah.
from Cincinnati, you're like, it was a spiritual thing to even walk to like see the ocean. Like if you ever like go, like, oh, look at the ocean. But there's like, why would I ever go? Like I can go to the mountains right here, and the ocean's right here, and the desert's here, and but
Yeah. I've got everything I need.
uh
Yeah, man. It's and just go back to the river just for a second, man. It's like here in Mississippi, and it's kind of crazy like looking at the history of like the blues and American music because it came up the Mississippi, just from the Delta of the Hill Country here with if you want to say Robert Johnson or whomever else that may come to mind. And next thing you know, it came up the river. It's in Chicago. It's in Cincinnati, and then like just really the birthplace of like you had the Chicago blues scene then, and
oh yeah,
even the Cincinnati, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, and the stories that you were telling about Chess, I was like, yeah, I've heard some of these stories being told from the old blues cats from down here, like when they
oh
got to go up there.
yeah. Have you met any of those guys? Like, have you been to like? Are there still like I haven't? I need to since I live in Nashville. And I need to go down. I don't want to be like I'm big on seeing going to graves. Like Victoria's been to Leadbelly's grave. She's from Louisiana, so she used to go and like hang out at Leadbelly's grave.
Hmm.
Um, or the crossroads, like is the actual crossroads. There's actually like a place, right? It was supposed to be the crossroads.
That's right. Yeah. And so
Scottsdale.
yeah. But you be careful, and you get to talking to locals, and they'll point you to the actual crossroad where the Mississippi has blues markers, just signs along the highway that kind of tell you the history, and this is where so and so happened, or this is where Big John Hurt was from, whatever else.
Uh-huh.
But they're never accurate on their location.
Uh-huh.
Usually it's in the vicinity, but if you want to get to that piece of earth where it happened, you'll have to talk to somebody local to kind of get you right on the money. But if you want to meet a blues legend, man, you got to get down to Bentonia, Mississippi. Jimmy Duck Holmes at the Blue Front Cafe. He's one of the last living guys from that era, and he plays the Bentonia style blues, which is it's Bentonia is on the south side of the Delta, but the Bentonia style is just slightly different than Delta style blues. Uh, and it's all in the it's in the thumb. There was a difference in the way that the bass was done, and Jimmy is just a master, and he'll give you a blues lesson right there on the spot.
Well, how
Uh,
old is he?
Dude, he's in his 80s.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I mean, 2 times a year you have the Blue Front Cafe Music Festival, and then you'll have the Anniversary Festival where they celebrate. I think this year was the 72nd year of the Blue Front Cafe, and his parents founded that place. And when it opened, it was like a town hall in Bentonia. It's not a big town. This is where people would go to get the news, or they would go to get a pound of flour, and also at night it would be a juke joint to where the blues guys would meet, and like a Henry Stuckey who founded the Bentonia style. That's where he would teach Jimmy how to play it. So I mean, like living and breathing that air, there's just something about Mississippi, man.
Yeah. Shit, man. Well, I gotta get down there.
Yeah, come on.
I want detailed notes when we get off this, so
Yeah,
I can have a little roadmap for
but
sure.
yeah, and when you definitely go to Clarksdale, of check out the Shack Up Inn while you're there, and you'll meet some guys at the Shack Up Inn, and they can kind of point you around town and get you to where you want to, some of the sites you want to see.
Cool. Yeah, that I saw when I moved to San Francisco. That guy, T Model Ford.
Yeah,
He's one. He played, and he had to be 90, and he was sitting down, and he was drinking Jack Daniels out of the bottle. And I was like, this motherfucker. And it was great. I love all that shit that was coming out of. I think that's how Fat Possum started. So like they had like Arl Burnside, and some of those records just kick ass because it has that. It was like John Spencer Blues Explosion, like it's like kind of a rock vibe. But that I would put those on at parties all the time. Like you put on T Model Ford or Arl Burnside or some shit and crank that up. It's
yeah.
like boom.
You ever listen to RL's grandson, Cedric?
Yes. Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
man, uh guy I was in a band with, Cedric used to drum for him. Like Cedric's not only a talented guitar player, he's also a phenomenal drummer. He used to drum for his
Oh, I
grandfather.
thought. Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah. But man, it's like that whole Fat Possum thing. There's the Netflix documentary. It was on Netflix. I don't know if it's still there, but it's free on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing. But it's about Fat Possum and RL and all those old blues cats that were recorded, and you kind of see both sides of the coin. Like a lot of the people in the black community felt like that white guy at Fat Possum was taking advantage of them, and then you hear the founder of Fat Possum. He was like, "If I didn't do this, nobody would have ever known him."
Uh-huh.
It's like, yeah, and then like to flash forward, the Black Keys would record there. Erica and the Heartless Bastards would, and
Uh-huh.
so like, yeah, Fat Possum did record these blues guys. Were they paid the way they should have been? That's not for me to say. That's not my problem. I'm just glad it exists because I mean, like you said, I enjoy putting that on for people, and it'll blow their hair back.
Oh yeah. Fuck yeah. I mean, Dan Auerbach's kind of doing, I don't know him, but he's been kind of doing that with his own label, I think, here. Like there was one
Easy eye.
yeah, we were at this party, and there was Americana Fest was recently, and they had this one dude. I can't remember his name. I think he might be blind. Tall, skinny dude, cowboy hat. Seems like an old blues, like old soul singer blues guy. I can't
I
remember
know
his
who you're
name.
talking about. Let me pull it up real quick. But
Yeah, he was just on. He just did like CBS. He did some kind of national stuff, but it's the same kind of vibe. They're trying to keep that music alive.
oh yeah, I mean Dan Arbach comes down to the Blue Front Cafe. They recorded Easy Eye Sound put out Jimmy's latest record. So I mean you're absolutely right. Uh
Those are Ohio boys.
yes they are. Uh Robert Finley,
Okay. Yep.
that's the
It was
guy.
great.
And Easy Eye, man, same with Fat Possum. Like there is a particular sound that comes out of Easy Eye. Like you have uh Marcus King, he's great.
Uh-huh.
Um and then my buddy Early James, uh Robert Finley, man, Jimmy Duck Holmes. But there's something about the way that Dan, and I know he uses the same studio guys. Like it wouldn't matter if Lee, you were invited to play at Easy Eye, like you wouldn't be able to bring your band in. You have to play with his studio band. And cause like every Easy Eye record kind of has the same kind of feeling to it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's like
So,
muscle
and I,
shoals.
yeah, yeah, just like
I think
Fame.
he's probably doing that. Yeah, definitely doing that on purpose. I'm sure. Like, okay,
Hmm.
here's the warm tones or whatever. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. But
Good for him, man.
yes, yeah, uh, yeah, Dan's the man. Uh, they leave Jimmy music equipment down there at the Blue Front all the time, and so like last time I was playing with some old Black Keys stacks. We were running sound for the festival, and I was like, man, I was this close to meeting Dan. He was just there like the day before, and I was like, man, I've been wanting to have a word with that guy.
Yeah. I mean, talk about yeah. It's funny. Like I remember them. Let's talk about bands that you see. Same with the White Stripes. I used to see them when nobody was there. I remember being in Cleveland one time and the Black Keys were playing. Nobody there. 10 people. Same with like that's Erica's story. She was in Akron, I think, or something, and playing for nobody. And Patrick Carney's in there.
Yeah,
And then that, you know, it's one of those things like, what if that never, I'm sure that she would be successful no matter what, but it was like one of those things like, what if that night didn't happen? You know, where would I be now? Like, what happened? Yeah. It's funny that you talk about that. Yeah, that you have to get with the locals to find that. I remember I was in England and well, it's the same thing. First of all, the Cavern Club where the Beatles play, that's not the real
hmm
one. Like the one you go see, everybody's like, that's not the real one. You're like, what?
right.
And like one of my good stories was we went to because I'm such a when I'm at certain places, I had to stop. Like we stayed, I didn't like my wife is just very like she does shit I would not do. Like we got in a plane. We didn't have any reservations for anything. Like I'm like, we rented a car. I probably would have even done that. And so we fly into London. We rent a car, and it's pouring down rain. I go out of Heathrow Airport, and I'm driving on the wrong side of the road. And we're driving around. We find a place to stay, and it's right next to Hyde Park. And the only thing I knew about Hyde Park in my mind was that when they had the Rolling Stones played, and they released a bunch of Brian Jones had just died, and they released a bunch of butterflies in the sky, and that was Hyde Park, and it was right next. I was like, oh, okay. But then we went to Stonehenge, and then we drove through Wales. And when I'm thinking of Wales, I think of Led Zeppelin 3, when Jimmy and Robert are in this cottage called Brunyar. And so in my mind, I'm like, I need to find this place. And so it was the same thing. I had a general idea, but in Wales, everything looks like it's like Lord of the Rings. Even like all the words are like,
In that old English style.
yeah, yeah, like you're like what? And so I I was feeling pressure, like I'm okay, especially from my wife. I'm wasted. It's getting dark. Like we're still trying to find this, but I was like, okay. She's like, go in that gas station. So I go in the gas station. I went up to somebody. I was like, hey, do you know where this cottage is? And the guy's like, Robert Plant. Yes. And he's like, come with me. And we go out to the backyard, and he has a picnic table. We stand up on the picnic table, and he points to the top of this mountain. And he's like, You see the tree line and the wires up there. I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, you go that way, drive up this driveway, open this gate. There's going to be a lot of sheep. Don't let the sheep out. Pull your car in, close the gate. And so I'm like, okay. And then so I'm like, okay, I think I got it. And then you just go around. He's like, one guy owns it or something. And he's like, people go there, you know. And so I was like, okay, so I go. It's exactly as he said. There's sheep, there's all this shit. And I go around the corner and like it still gives me chills. They're on a rock because in Wales the houses don't have numbers. They just are a name. That's what Bronyar is. It's the name of a cottage. That's in the back of Zeppelin 3 it says, I think they dedicate it to a tiny derelict cottage in Wales is what it says. Uh so on a rock written in white paint it said Bronyar and it had an arrow pointed. And so you go up and you can look online like pictures of it and it's like this little stone cottage with a blue door and boom, there it is. And it's like,
Yeah. Led
yeah,
Zeppelin 3. I mean, you're looking at it.
yeah. Down by the seaside, that acoustic song that's called Bronyar Stomp. You know, Zeppelin 3 to me, the still the killer, the ultimate opening song is Immigrant Song. And when they were doing that tour, when they would open with that, and they would start with this thing called LA Drone, which is just essentially like feedback, and then can't
Dude,
touch.
that was always the hype song, like going to play a show in a town I'd never been. Like right when I was about to hit that skyline, put Immigrant Song on
Oh,
and just
okay.
just get hyped up.
And if I always want to, if I ever meet Robert Plant, I always want to ask him. And I've been close to Robert Plant because that's another whole story. But I want to ask him like, when did you decide just to do like actually like I'm just gonna wail some like banshee howl Viking shit over this riff, you know?
Yeah.
When did that come to you?
And it's that band and I'm not the biggest fans of them. I don't know how they get away with it, but I mean even Robert doesn't really mind it, but that Greta Van Fleet, uh they sound, I mean, if you close your eyes, I remember when I showed my dad a Greta Van Fleet song. I didn't tell him who it was, and he was like, "I didn't know Led Zeppelin was making new music." And I was like, "That ain't Led Zeppelin." He was like, "They sound a little too much like them."
Yeah, I know. There was a I was back. I had friends that were kind of like trying to sell me on like yeah, like dude, this it's you should give it a chance because I'm very standoffish when
Yeah,
shit like people tell me that shit. I'm like, come on. But yeah, they put it on. And I was kind of like, okay, I get it. I can't watch I've seen stuff or pictures on YouTube stuff. I'm like, I can't. But I get what you mean. The records and stuff. I get it. And
yeah,
Robert Plant actually did. I think he said like, have you? Well, at least that's yeah. I'm sure that's what they. I'm sure their favorite Greta Van Fleet's favorite moment is when Robert Plant said something about them. It was like, oh, okay, we're good.
yeah. I remember there was this was right before COVID. They were planning that Woodstock, and it may have been all hype. It may have been a fake lineup, but I saw that Robert Plant, and I can't remember the chick that he plays with now,
Alison
uh,
Krauss.
Alison Krauss, and they were going to be there, and they had booked Greta Van Fleet on the same day, and I was like, that y'all did that on purpose, if that's true.
Oh, that's interesting. Uh-huh.
But it never happened. It got canceled. But I remember like, man, how long have they been trying to mimic Woodstock 69? I mean, they had Shit Fest that was a complete disaster with new metal. You know, you had I think it might have been DMX's the documentary on it is insane. It looked like DMX had the best show there at Shit Fest. It was like where it rained real heavy and everybody thought it was mud, but it was actually the urinals had overflowed.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
there
Little
was
shit.
literal shit everywhere.
Okay.
Bad experience. But yeah, and you had all your new metal bands like Korn and Limp Bizkit who did it all for the Nookie and all that, and it's just
One of the funniest things about Limp Bizkit, there's a thing on YouTube where I think the guy from Insane Clown Posse comes out and drop kicks the lead singer. And it kind of misses, but it's kind of funny. The whole thing is like, okay, because they're all serious. That lead singer of Limp Bizkit's like doing his thing, and this guy comes out of nowhere, like full on launches himself with both feet. Yeah, yeah. All y'all listen to this. Definitely YouTube. Limp Bizkit guy gets drop kicked.
I might check that out right when we get done. Oh, what was the Robert Plant story? You said you got real close to meeting him one time?
Okay, so one of the coolest things at San Francisco when I moved there is they have this thing called Hardly Strictly Bluegrass Festival, and it's a free festival, and it's exactly what it says. It's Hardly Strictly, and I think they kind of. I met this guy, Uber driver in San Francisco last time. He said they're kind of tamping down people like the caliber or the people who can draw a lot of people like Robert Plant because it was just getting too crazy. Like because it's free, and it was
Hmm.
like intense. Like I got there's a couple years where I kind of had all access and then like backstage and shit, like because I had friends playing or whatever, and then it makes you never go back when you have to just be like ah. But there's one year it was Robert Plant was playing with this, I think it was the Space Shifters, and he was dating for a while. He was dating Patty Griffin,
Oh,
uh, and he lived in Austin for a while. And Erica was around them. I think they were just around. Like Robert Plant would go to the Continental and hang out. So he was there playing, and we had friends. My friend Victoria was there, and she knows Buddy Miller and Emmylou Harris and all these people. So we were kind of. I had a backstage pass that year. And talk about him like a dude who can come in and like just make people like Steve Earle and all these people like holy shit, Robert Plant like just walked in because he just has that.
aura.
Yeah, totally. And John Paul Jones was there that year. John
Oh,
Paul
dude.
Jones was playing with this guy C6 Steve. You ever heard of this guy?
I haven't heard of C6.
He's from Oakland, and I think he lives in Norway now. He's kind of a cool move. American artists, if they can be big in like Spain or wherever, and they'll just move there. Like, oh, fuck it, I'm famous. It's like
Uh,
I'll just live here. And so I think he's just got big, but he's an Oakland dude, an older white dude who plays steel, like lap steel, and he
yeah.
would play with just a drummer and him. And I think he might have something to do with Easy Eye or Fat Possum or something. But anyway, this year, C6 Steve, along with his drummer and him playing lap steel, had John Paul Jones playing bass. And it was fucking badass. And so John Paul Jones was doing that, and he was playing mandolin with Giant Sand, but they called it Giant Sand. Hal Gelb's like Tucson band. And so half of Led Zeppelin was at the festival, kind of walking around. And that year was especially cool. Patti Smith was there. I think the Chris Robinson Brotherhood was there. It was just like a really like. So anyway, we would be sitting on the side of the stage with like Buddy Miller was playing, and all of a sudden Robert Plant walks in and he stands like right in front of me. I have pictures of the back of his head, like if you but
I was this close.
yeah, I was just close, sniffing. No, but um, anyway, the Emmylou Harris always closes out the Sunday night. It's always a spiritual thing. Usually, fog is coming in through the eucalyptus trees in Golden Gate Park, and Emmylou Harris takes the stage, and it's just a thing. And at the end of the night, there's a backstage tent thing. So everybody's hanging out back there, and John Paul Jones walks in, and he has his mandolin, and he takes it out. He's kind of picking it, and it's everybody's like, "What the fuck?" And his mandolin has his symbol on it, his like little, like Zoso and the feather and all. It has his symbol and mother of pearl on the headstock, and on the back of it in iron is like his symbol, like a big kind of thing that protects it from your belt. I think the
Hmm.
wood. But he was hanging out, and he just said like afterwards, he said, "Is anybody going by this hotel, the Vitali or whatever?" And my wife says, "We are." I looked at her like, what? And
We are.
so he's like, can I get a lift? And we're like, yeah, sure. And I was like, I told him, I was like, well, I'm parked in because there was an app in San Francisco at the time, especially around Golden Gate Park, where people could rent their driveways, like because there was no parking. And
Hmm.
so I had rented somebody's driveway. I was like, well, we have to walk through the woods, and we're kind of in somebody's driveway. He's like, I could use a good walk. And so anyway, that night concluded with me, Victoria, my wife, and John Paul Jones walking through the woods, getting in our car, our Volkswagen Jetta, and him putting the mandolin in our trunk, and we drive him to his hotel in San Francisco. And when we drive away, we're like, what the fuck? Like just
Yeah,
crazy.
man, Lee, for you especially, like one thing we definitely have in common, man. I listen to like Led Zeppelin pretty much every morning on my way to work, and we used to have the same thing. It's like get the lead out, and just to
Mhm.
have John Paul Jones in your car and you just giving him a ride, I was like, probably one of those moments. Is like I have a million questions, but we're probably just going to talk about the weather.
Totally. I mean, I remember I was driving, my wife was in the back with him, and she kept calling. I remember the only thing I remember, she kept calling him John Paul. So John Paul. And he said something. I remember he's like, said something about it's easy to get a good table at a restaurant or something. I don't know. He said, because I am a pretty big fucking rock star. But I did ask him, I remember I was asking, I was trying to think like, I asked him if he knew Phil Lesh from the Dead. He's like, what do you think? All bass players are friends, But I was like, but no, he's like, yeah, I've met him a couple times, and it was. I didn't take a picture. I didn't do anything. There are some pictures that I've seen from that day where it proves that I'm not bullshitting, but but yeah,
Yeah,
it was cool. Exactly. And what do you say?
yeah. It's to be in like man, buddy of mine. He's like, if you could interview like any musician, like let's say you got your favorite musician of all time to come on the show, he's like, would you want that? And I was like, no, because it wouldn't be good. Like yeah,
It totally turns into the Chris Farley, like, hey, remember when you did that?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, oh, well, this is not going to be fun at all. I interviewed a flat earther one time, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I just let him go. I didn't really push him. He had this app that he had built, and he was really pushing the app. So like, anytime I would ask him about like the curvature of the Earth that you can visibly see from an airplane, he was like, "If you get my app for $5.99, the app will tell you why that's BS." And I was like, "Well, I'm literally looking at it though." And he's like, "Yeah." So anyway, about my app.
God. Some
Yeah.
people
So
just get deep in a rabbit hole, man.
oh yeah, he was living
Climb
there.
out.
Oh, well, dude, tell me a little bit more about like your influences with these new projects. Like where did the even pick a song? If you'd like to send me a song, I'll play it at the end of this episode. If you have a song in mind,
Cool.
like tell me a little bit about like the does music come first? Did the lyrics come or yeah, did the lyrics come first? Did you have a melody or do
So
you
like, I mean, the one thing that I come to realize or accept as being an artistic person is to really just um I don't know, accept my gifts and my curses. No. But just I really I never get scared of like writer's block or anything. I know to I'm very into like when Tom Petty or whoever says like I don't know. It's um, a, like channeling something. I've learned to like lean into that, and I know when it's coming, or I don't know if it's by chance. Like sometimes when I'm like dog tired, but I'm like I should go pick up my guitar, or I should go like hit a little weed and pick up my guitar, and sometimes I'm like I'm glad I did that. Like and what's nice about iPhones is you can see they're all dated in time, so
Mhm.
you can look like holy shit, like all that came that night within an hour. Like 7 songs or something,
Oh, it
which is
even gives you your GPS. You were sitting at 121 Redstone
yeah,
Drive, and I was like,
yeah,
I was at my buddy's house, and we were upstairs, and you know, man, I had forgotten all about this recording.
yeah. I mean, that's the I think the greatest as far as being a musician or a songwriter is like this iPhone, because all the shit that you used to have to do to like capture a moment was like kind of hard, or you always had to have something, but it's like that is the greatest thing. And so I've learned to just I don't even like I won't even look at it. Like I'll just tape, 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 and know that there's something sitting on my phone that I can like I'll know that there's certain veins that I can go to, and I won't even mess with it until it's time to make a record, because I don't want to like think about anything too much, or
I like that.
and I just go and like, but the good thing is to always do it. Like lately I've been kind of not, because I'm releasing a record and it seems like so like you're blocked until the record's out because you're like, I got to do this, I got to promote this, I got to post
Hmm.
something. And so you kind of just like, and I'm kind of looking forward to just the record coming out, and then like, oh, I can go back to doing. I mean, the best, how it is like when you come up with something really cool, or in your that you think's really cool or whatever. That's the best part, I think, is getting this little thing on your phone, and you're like, and then to be able to go into a studio and actually kind of make it um, somewhat of how you think it should sound. Like
Hmm.
that's the next thing, but just getting it is the most important part to me.
Well, I thought it was real interesting what you had said earlier about the recording process, like while recording, like during COVID, how like a lot of the songs that they weren't finished yet. And so is that a typical process? Do you go in with like these ideas kind of open? Do you do that on purpose? So like the people that you're recording with to help them piece it out, or like what's your process on that?
Well, so I've always been kind of a band guy. Like I always wanted to play with friends or people I'm on a certain kind of wavelength with,
Hmm.
and or just to know what they do musically or how they are personally. Like, and when I did the one before this newest record, we rehearsed our asses off. The three of us. It was me on guitar and singing, a bass player and a piano player. And we came in with like 30 songs. We made sure that we knew what the fuck we were doing, because we're going in to play with a drummer we've never met, and Jason, who I was just becoming friendly with. Um, and that record, the way Jason was doing all the engineering, this LA Yesterday record, which is, I'm really proud of that record, but he wasn't playing guitar with us. So it was just me playing rhythm guitar, drums, bass, and keyboards. And then he came in and overdubbed all his parts afterwards. This record, we were all live. He just like kind of hit record and went into the room with us. So we're all in the room. We made the decision to, I was just playing acoustic guitar. So I moved into the vocal isolation booth with my acoustic standing up in a vocal mic. Everybody calls it the Thriller mic. That it's a Shure whatever it is, but it's recognizable when you look at it. So I was looking at the band and especially the drummer, just kind of to know endings or whatever. But that was how we did this. But it's not how I think we should record all the time. But I'm also want things to be different from record to record. But like, yeah, this record, I and it kind of came back to haunt me because I was like, fuck, I wish I would have finished these lyrics, because some of the live vocals, there's on this new record, there are some scratch, like what you would call scratch. Like I recorded them when we were playing, which is rare nowadays just because of isolation or whatever, that you actually could get that vocal take you're singing with the band. But there on this record, at least there's at least one. But I didn't have the lyrics done, and so you were singing the same verse twice or whatever, and you're like, "Fuck that lyrics! That vocal's really good, but the lyrics are this. I gotta fix them." So that was one of the drawbacks of doing it like this. But so anyway, that's what you to your question. That was just unique to this thing, I guess, and that's kind
Yeah.
of lends itself to how when you're listening to it, you're kind of like, I don't know. This is a record that I listen to the most, maybe because there's so much improvisation.
Hmm.
and so I just enjoy listening to the guys play together.
Yeah, man.
Um, it's
What's
out.
the name of it? And it's readily available. You just released it, right?
It's not out till November 3rd. I've been kind of pulsing out the singles. So there's 3 songs out. The record's called "The Falcon Ate the Flower." Um, that kind of came from uh, the one of the record or the songs Scarlet Rivera plays on is called "Peregrine Fly," and I kind of wrote that around with the idea of when I lived in New York for a minute, and I would see these. You would hear about that they had these, but peregrine falcons, I think they put them there on purpose to control the pigeon population. And so they kind of took up residence in these skyscrapers. And so I would see these things hunting pigeons around. And I had the song kind of around loosely around this falcon thing. And I didn't write any song um, with the idea of, I didn't know I would meet Scarlett Rivera. I didn't write anything like, oh, I have violin on this.
Hmm.
So I had to kind of pick songs like on the fly, like what would sound good with her. And that was one of them. And anyway, right away, she's like, she was asking me all about like what it's about and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I used to do falconry. I'm like, of course you did. Like, all I can think of her when I see her is how she looked during the Rolling Thunder review. And it was a very mysterious vibe to me. I actually asked her, I was like, did Dylan write a lot of these songs after he met you? Because visually she fit into lyrically, there's a very gypsy kind of vibe to that whole record, you know?
I know
And
what you
she
mean.
looks like the
Yeah.
songs,
Yeah.
you know? And she's like, well, I think he wrote One More Cup of Coffee after he met me. And I was like, oh. But anyway, she was very into and I was like, oh, I just got to kind of, anyway, the Falcon thing and her being on the record kind of sparked like I need to kind of make the record something called that. And it was a very peace for such a deadly bird that it's eating a flower. It was kind of more of a peaceful thing or something. I don't know.
Very cool, man. Well, and so that's two of them. You said, is there another single that you got out? I think I just saw you
Oh
release one like a couple days ago.
yeah, the last one came out on Friday. It's
Yeah.
called Baby I'm There. It kind of closes out what's towards the end of the record. Yeah, so there's 3 that came out, and then those are all on Spotify now, and then the record will come out on the 3rd, and we have a limited vinyl pressed and all that. All that'll ship out. You can pre-order it now, but it'll all ship out on the 3rd. And
Where do they go do that at? You got a website?
yes, my Instagram, Lee Gallagher on the Hallelujah, website, Lee Gallagher Music. Um, it's all kind of easy to find, I think. Yeah,
Right on, dude. Well, Lee, I got three more questions and we'll walk out the door, man. I really appreciate you giving me an hour of your time.
for sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So question one is man, you've done some traveling and gone to see some scenes and like Led Zeppelin 3 story with the cottage. Where's your next adventure, man? Where you want to go next?
Probably down in Mississippi, I guess.
Right on, dude. Hit me up when you do.
I will. Like that's what's cool about being back here is the fall, man. The fall is in all its glory happening right now. It is a
Yeah.
beautiful day and nothing like driving around in the autumn.
Yeah, man. You go. Tennessee has got some sites, especially on that the east side with like Chattanooga, and you get up
Yeah.
there around like Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg, up around Lookout Mountain around this time of the year when the leaves are changing.
I just went up there. We just went down there for we just drove down there to just to drive. We like to drive. So we just took a drive down there, but I went up to Lookout Mountain. Do you know James Legg?
I
You
don't.
ever hear that guy?
Mm-mm.
Look him up. James Legg. He was in a band called the Black Diamond Heavies. And it's just he's a badass singer. He plays the Fender Rhodes and a drum with a drummer,
Okay.
and he's killer. James
Got
Legg,
it.
Legg. He's from Chattanooga.
Yeah, I got a buddy in Chattanooga. It's Shake It Like a Caveman. He does the one man band to where he's playing his guitar and drums at the same time. He's a madman. And it kind of reminded me of like the story you were sharing earlier about the guy from Oakland, but is huge in Norway.
Mhm.
He lives in Chattanooga, but he's huge in France. And so like he'll go to France like 2, 3 times a year. And I was like, you why haven't you moved yet?
I want to be big in France because I love to eat, you know. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's be spending your travel around just good eating.
All right. Well, question two, man, you already plugged it, but I just want to make sure that you plugged it one more time for those listening. Is ways that people can connect with you and just scoop up your music if they want to purchase it. You most active on Instagram, you say?
Yeah, I would guess. Instagram, as we're leading up to the release, I'm gonna start putting more just stuff in the studio stuff, but there's I have a link tree thing so you can get on all like the Bandcamp. Selling the vinyl online is primarily through Bandcamp right now. This is like kind of pay what you want kind of deal. But yeah.
Right on. Well, I'll hop on there today and support it. Oh, last question to walk it out the door. What was your favorite part of this conversation?
Oh man, well, I just know that I love your knowledge of music and of talking about the South. It's cool to be down here because my wife, it's kind of funny because my wife's from Western Kentucky. And she, and as you go around the South, people have different, like, there's little different pockets of dialects and people have stronger accents or whatever. And she's got a pretty thick kind of accent. But I don't know what I was thinking about. I was at somewhere like deep in the South and everybody didn't have an accent. And I was kind of like, oh, I know what you're all country. so
Mm-hmm.
because they live on a farm, and then so she decides to tell her whole family at breakfast. She's like, oh, Lee figured it out, y'all. We're not Southern, we're country.
Yeah, man. I think they call mine the Alabama pine. Like from where I'm from, I'm on the very southern end of the Appalachian mountain,
Okay.
and so we're right in pine country. And I think that's what they call that. I don't know what Western Kentucky would be, but I know
Well,
like of all the southern accents, a lot of people get the Alabama and Mississippi confused, but I mean they're right there side by side. But it's hard to beat a Tennessee Belle. I mean that's about the damn cutest accent I've ever heard.
that's true. So yeah, I think that's my wife, maybe. But what was I gonna say? Have you ever listened to S.G. Goodman?
I have not.
She's from Western Kentucky, and she's one of the only people that I've met or listened to her talk, and she sounds like my wife's family. I'm like, oh, I get it,
I
Western
have to
Kentucky.
look. I have to see what that is. Then, yeah.
She, she, I think uh, the guy from My Morning Jack, Jim James, recorded her first record, but she's just kind of blowing up. She has the same management, I think, as Jason Isbell. Um, Tracy Tom, they're great Nashville people, but she's stunning. It's just like she just played the Opry. She's a badass, and like you listen to her sing, you're like, oh, okay, like it's
Well,
good.
good
SG,
plug, man.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll look that up. SG Goodman.
yeah.
Well, Lee, I don't have anything else to do. Anything else you'd like to plug before we go?
No, man, we're just going to the holidays. I'm gonna release this record. I'm playing. If anybody's in Nashville, I'm playing on Halloween night with some friends at the Bowery Vault off Gallatin Road here in East Nashville, and then we're kind of gonna go in the holidays, and 2024 is full on what God willing and the creek don't rise. Hallelujah rock and roll shows. So here we go.
Well, right on, brother. Well, Lee, man, I have to get up there. I hate we couldn't do this in person. You'll have to come back on again. I had a good time chatting with you today, man.
For sure. It's good to talk to you. And yeah, hit me up afterwards and I'll send you record, for sure.
Right on, brother. Well, take
Cool.
care.
Okay, you too.